incubator of life, through our lines.
Hey there, I'm Luminousz Star. Welcome to vlog day number 5. I want to share with you all I was reading a book this morning. I want to read just a couple of highlighted areas, actually 3 highlighted areas, in a book that I have been reading for at least the last 3 weeks now. And I've been mentioning this book, Terrifying Transferences, Aftershock of Childhood Trauma by Lawrence E. Hedges. Now this is a great book to read, and I'm going to read for you just a few or these 3 highlighted areas that I really thought was very interesting, because it talks about the trust issue. Even though the trust issue, you know, somebody who's on the outside looking in, they may think that the trust issue should not be there because it's a pretty good relationship. But for those who have a background in childhood trauma, and they have had, you know, narcissistic abuse in their lives since their childhood, they have been in relationships with those with a cluster personality or a narcissistic personality, the trust issue can be there for a lot longer. Now, I'm not sharing this to discourage anyone. I'm just pointing a few things out here that I think are very highlightable, you know, to keep in mind, especially if you're some of my stars who are reading this book with me. This is great because we're going to be talking about this book in further detail. Okay, I'm going to bring this book back up into discussion, probably on a live stream, and I'll probably make the whole live stream about this book. And of course, this will probably be after I finish reading the book. Okay, so here are the highlighted areas here. Here we go. So through simple conditioning, wait a minute, let me make sure you guys can see that. There we go. So through simple conditioning, the trust relationship itself becomes the object of terror in proportion to whatever extent it was originally unsuccessful in quelling the rising tide of overwhelming distress and pain. Later trust relationships or trust situations are then imbued with this conditioned fear and its accompanying clamor. Okay, I want to stop right there for a minute. Conditioned fear, that's very highlightable. Conditioned fear, because in a lot of the videos that I've done, I mentioned how a cluster B personality and a narcissist, one of the things that they do is they like to invoke or influence fear in other people. Okay, so I think these 2 words right here are very highlightable, you know, or to keep in mind. Conditioned fear. Clamor takes myriad forms, but in therapy, it functions to produce a breach in interpersonal connection or to limit the possibility of sustained connection. Now, another thing that I've been talking about lately is interpersonal skills, which the narcissist and cluster B personality, they lack. They lack interpersonal skills. So a person who's been in a relationship with a narcissist or cluster B personality during their childhood, and maybe even through their adolescence on into their adulthood, so they had first-hand experience about a person or concerning a person who lacks interpersonal skills. Therefore, the interpersonal connection will not be there. You see where I'm going with this? Because a person who's been in a relationship with a narcissist and cluster personality, they have first-hand experience, extended experience actually, and being in a relationship that's very dysfunctional with a person who lacks interpersonal skills. Therefore, the interpersonal connection is not there. So when they go see a therapist or a counselor, this is the issue that's going to be taking place here. There's always going to be not always, but there's going to be a trust issue that may be a little bit more challenging than someone who hasn't had a relationship with someone who lacks interpersonal skills. You know, because a therapist, they can get plenty of clients and people who come into their office. They may have trust issues, but they may not necessarily have had relationships in their childhood with somebody who lacks interpersonal skills, like a narcissist or a cluster B personality. Therefore, the interpersonal connection or the problem with interpersonal connection may not be their case due to narcissistic abuse. But someone who does have who has had narcissistic abuse, especially since childhood, this trust issue is going to be a little bit more challenging. Now, this is why I mentioned this in the live stream the other night. You know, I was talking about how that trust issue, actually on the last vlog that I did, vlog number 4, I was talking about how the trust issue is really more challenging for those of us who have a background in dysfunctional families, dysfunctional relationships with cluster B personality and narcissists. Because one of the things that a narcissist does is they like to use fear to, well, I'll get to that in a minute. I'll just read this last section because it's going to get into the point that I was just about to make. The person is terrified of connections, of relationship, because interconnectedness in the primordial past was known to be hurtful. Okay, so this is also why there's the trust issue. Nobody wants to get hurt again, right? So a lot of the human thing to do is to protect oneself from getting hurt or being in a very dangerous situation. But the thing about being in a relationship during childhood with a narcissist and cluster B personality is that one is groomed to behave a certain way, to even think a certain way. Okay, so I just wanted to point these highlighted areas out because I think this really speaks to the trust issue that a lot of people deal with when they're dealing with the cluster B personality and the narcissist. And then when they branch out to other people and they want to have healthy relationships, the trust issue is still there. Okay, and it's just very hard to, it's very challenging to work through, but it's not impossible. But I really wanted to point this out. Again, the book is Terrifying Transferences. Lawrence E. Hedges is the author, but no worries, I'll leave it in the description box below. But yeah, this is a great book to read. It's about 489 pages. So just to give you an idea of how much reading you may have ahead of you if you haven't started reading this book. But for those of you who are reading the book right now with me, you know, again, no worries. We're going to have a discussion about this book in a future video. I may just do a regular video, or I may go ahead and just have this as a topic in a live stream so we can really talk about, so, you know, this book, and maybe if you maybe if you all have questions, so we can really talk about this book. Some of you may have questions, and maybe we can just, you know, make the live stream about the discussion of this book. Okay, so as you can see, I've really highlighted some areas here that I really thought was very highlightable. So yeah, the trust issue is there. Absolutely. The other thing I wanted to mention again was conditioned fear. So conditioned fear is something that I also think is very important to keep in mind. Not just the trust issue, but the conditioned fear, which actually relates to the trusted issue. You know, having a issue of not trusting people, even though they have proven to be trustworthy. That conditioned fear is there, which leads again to the trust issue, because people don't want to be hurt again. They don't want to be in that situation again where they are being abused and used. So it's just it's a reflex. You know, some people who have childhood trauma due to having narcissistic parents, or having those in their relationships, dysfunctional relationships, who may have a cluster B personality or a narcissistic personality. Again, the conditioned fear is set. Therefore, they're going to have trust issues. Even when people have proven themselves to be trustworthy, it's still going to be a lot of caution there. I mean, a lot of people should be cautionary anyway, and not just, you know, automatically trust others. You know, trust, it takes time to build up. But a person who has had his or her trust violated since their childhood, again, there's going to be an additional challenge there for the trust issue. But again, it can be worked through. When they go to a counselor and therapist, the counselor or the therapist, they have to build trust with their client. So a person who has been dealing with trust issues and the conditioned fear, right? the therapist and the therapist and the counselor, they're going to have a little bit more work to do. This is something that a lot of people who had childhood trauma run into when they go, even when they go see somebody like a mentor, a life coach, a therapist, a counselor, someone that they ought to be able to trust. They're still going to be dealing with that conditioned fear. Therefore, they're going to have that trust issue. They're going to always be looking, well, not always, but a lot of times he or she may be looking for the other shoe to drop. You know, subconsciously, they may be looking for reasons to not trust the mentor, to not trust the counselor. But I just wanted to point this out to you all because I know a lot of you who may be watching this vlog, you've probably either gone through this yourself or you know someone who has. So having said all that, I wanted to share those areas that I highlighted in the book because lately I've been bringing this book up in the videos. So I just wanted you all to know some of my thoughts on that, you know, for this vlog and everything. So I really hope you enjoyed that. But the other thing I want to conclude, I mean, really, this is something that a lot of people who have childhood trauma, they deal with. Even when they're dealing with someone that they ought to be able to trust, or maybe they have to a certain extent began to trust. Okay, they started to trust them. However, it's like this feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop because their trust has been violated in the past due to narcissistic abuse, having a dysfunctional family, or what have you. So I just really wanted to share that. And don't forget, in the description box below, you can find that link to the introduction of the book. And now the thing I want to leave with you all in this vlog is that even when somebody is in a very good relationship and they have had a relationship with a narcissist and a cluster personality, see, this is one of the reasons why the trust issue is there, in my opinion, and also from personal experience. The trust has been violated. So being in a healthy relationship or a relationship that feels pretty good, the thing that has happened with the narcissist and the cluster personality is that he or she has left a lot of things unsaid and undone, which also can influence a no trust issue. Like, I'm not going to trust this person because they're not revealing things about themselves that really, it would be great to know in this relationship. So the narcissist and cluster personality, they tend to be a person who's very mysterious and very secretive when it comes to their relationships because they're withholding information, and they do this on purpose. So the other person, when the relationship is over, they get the sense of, wow, there's a lot of things that hasn't been said and hasn't been done. So I feel like there's more business to take care of. I feel like there's unfinished business with this person, even though the relationship ended 10 years ago. So it has that feeling of there's more business to take care of. There's unfinished business to take care of. There's always something missing. And the narcissist and cluster personality, they do that on purpose, by the way. This way they can come back into the relationship and they're counting on the other person to pursue him or her for validation, for closure. You see where I'm going with this? There's that feeling of unfinished business. And the narcissist and cluster personality, they influence that in other people. I'm not saying they're totally the cause of it. What I'm saying is they influence that kind of feeling in other people because there's a lot of things that are unsaid. There are a lot of things that are undone in the relationship because they're very mysterious and secretive. They don't know how to connect to other people. There's a lack of emotional regulation. So the narcissist and cluster personality, they're really not connecting to people that they're involved with or they have a relationship with. It's a dysfunctional relationship. That's partly why it's dysfunctional, because the narcissist and cluster personality, they lack empathy, they lack the ability to emotionally regulate, and also they lack the ability to have intimate relationships. So when you put all that together, a person who has had that kind of experience, where even when they have great relationships or what it looks like to be great relationships, their trust issue is still going to be there because of that. They're waiting for the other shoe to drop. They still feel like there's unfinished business with the narcissist and cluster personality. On one hand, they're still looking for the validation and closure from that person, the narcissist and a closely personality because they were emotionally involved with him or her. It could be a parent who's a cluster B personality. It can be a parent who's a narcissistic personality. It can be a spouse, an ex-lover. So when you combine that with the fact that a person want to have a great relationship, they want the connection with other people, it's kind of like they're in limbo. They have a past with the narcissist or the cluster B personality that feels unfinished, right? Yet they would like to move on and thrive forward and have great relationships with people who behave like they could be trustworthy or they have proven to be trustworthy, but there's still like that feeling of limbo between the past and the present going on into the future. It's like a person is in limbo, and there's the trust issue. This person is like, well, the narcissist in the past, it feels like things were unsaid and undone, so I feel like there's unfinished business there. Yet, on the other hand, there's people that really treat me pretty well, and it seems like they would be great to have relationships with, but I'm afraid because I'm still dealing with this, and I'm not getting what I need or want from this end. So on this end, it's probably not going to happen. So I just wanted to, share that with you all, and I certainly hope you enjoyed this vlog, day number 5. Stay tuned for more vlogs. Stay tuned for more videos. I'm Luminousz Star. Special shout out to my stars. Mwah! Thank you for your subscription. Thank you for motivating me and inspiring me to keep this channel Luminousz Star active.